In Adams, Tennessee, the legend of the Bell Witch has never faded. In the early 1800s, the Bell family was tormented by knocks on the door, disembodied voices, and horrors so relentless that even President Andrew Jackson came to witness them. More than a century later, a young family moved into the old house, convinced it was nothing more than superstition. But when night falls, the knocking returns, cold, deliberate, uninvited, and a lullaby drifts from an empty room, a reminder that the curse has never loosened its grip. The dirt road into the outskirts of Adams was blanketed with brittle leaves and the damp rot of autumn. Behind the wheel, Nathan fixed his gaze on the house that slowly emerged through the oak trees. Beside him, Claire tightened her grip on his hand, while Emma, their young daughter, dozed in the back seat, clutching her warm-knitted doll like a talisman. The house appeared in fragments, then whole, an oppressive silhouette against the dying light. 2 stories of weathered gray wood leaned under a moss-cloaked roof. Its windows, dark and unblinking, resembled hollow sockets in a skull. Though the place had been given a thin coat of repair, it exuded a coldness, a refusal to welcome daylight. Nathan forced a smile, telling himself that the spacious rooms and bargain price made this the perfect beginning for their family. The only neighbor they encountered was a frail old man at the fence line. He paused, his eyes following them with a weary caution. When he finally spoke, it was almost a whisper. "The Bell House never rests." And then he turned away, leaving Nathan bewildered yet eager to dismiss the warning. Claire, however, had heard every word. Her face tightened, though she masked it quickly, unwilling to spread her unease. That evening, they shared their first meal in the wide, draft-ridden parlor. The old oil lamp sputtered, casting a sickly amber glow. From the wall, a portrait loomed. An austere man with cavernous eyes. Emma kept glancing at it, whispering that, "He doesn't want me sitting here." Claire soothed her gently, chalking it up to childish imagination, though her own skin prickled beneath the gaze of that painted stare. When Emma finally drifted into sleep, Nathan and Claire noticed the sounds. At first faint, then deliberate, 3 measured knocks, steady as a heartbeat, echoing through the bedroom wall. Nathan laughed it off, muttering something about pipes. But Claire remained awake, her eyes fixed on the dark ceiling. To her, the rhythm felt less like plumbing and more like a signal, someone knocking patiently from the other side. From the hallway, the wind pressed through the cracks of the doorframe, carrying with it the sharp, earthy scent of soil freshly turned, damp and ancient. The house, silent to the ear, seemed to murmur in its own secret tongue. The new Bell family had come seeking peace. Instead, they had stepped into the echo of a curse that had never truly died. Nash. Oh no. The second night passed, and the knocking returned. This time, it was no longer scattered. 3 sharp knocks in succession, then silence, only to begin again, steady, deliberate, like a hand tapping with patient insistence on the walls themselves. Claire stirred awake, her body stiff with unease. Nathan still slept deeply, but she knew at once these were not pipes, not branches scraping the roof. The sound carried a weight that seemed to rise from inside the house itself. Slipping from bed, she crept down the hallway. The house was a cavern of shadow, moonlight spilling weakly through dust-streaked windows. As she neared Emma's room, Claire froze, heart pounding. From within came a lullaby. A woman's voice, soft, steady, humming a tune worn thin by time. The melody was slow, trembling, soaked in the drawl of the Old South. The bedroom door stood ajar. Claire pushed it open an inch and saw Emma sound asleep, clutching her ragged doll to her chest. The child's lips were still. Yet the lullaby continued, rising from the empty rocking chair by the window. Claire slammed the door shut, clutching her chest, and did not dare close her eyes again until morning. By dawn, Nathan was too busy unpacking to notice the hollows under her eyes. He only laughed, insisting she was letting the house get to her. But when Claire carried breakfast to the table, her blood ran cold. The rocking chair in Emma's room, no longer in its corner, now faced the bed directly, as though someone had sat there all night, watching. The day brought no comfort. Picture frames slid from walls without a draft. A chair swayed gently, though the floor was still. And Emma, while playing alone, whispered to her mother that she had seen a lady in a white dress step through the bathroom mirror. Claire steadied her voice and asked if the woman had a face. Emma shook her head. No, she never turns around. That evening, Nathan finally saw what Claire feared. As he sat reading in the parlor, the window burst open, though the night outside was breathless and still. A gust of cold air tore through, flinging the book from his hands. And in that fleeting moment, as he bent to retrieve it, he swore he saw her. A pale figure in a long white dress, hair falling like a curtain, gliding across the mirror's surface before vanishing with the blink of an eye. That night, the lullaby returned. Its ghostly cadence swelled through every room, wrapping around them like a shroud. Nathan gathered his wife and daughter close, straining to appear unshaken. Yet in the pit of his stomach, the old man's words returned. The bell house is never at rest. And when the clock struck 12, the knocking began again. 3 heavy raps, not from the walls this time, but from the bedroom door itself. Someone, unseen, was waiting patiently in the hallway, asking to be let inside. Nah, wow. In the days that followed, the Bell family home offered Nathan's household not a single moment of peace. The knocking grew constant, echoing at all hours, sometimes frantic, sometimes measured, like an unseen hand drumming out its own deliberate rhythm. Claire bore the brunt of it. One evening, while preparing dinner, she heard a faint whisper right behind her. A woman's voice, fragile, repeating her name again and again and again. She spun around, nothing but the empty kitchen. Yet the mirror above the sink had gone cloudy, the glass fogged as though someone had breathed against it. And in its surface she did not see herself, but a woman in a white dress, standing motionless, hair spilling forward to hide her face. Claire screamed, dropping the fork from her hand. The clatter brought Nathan running, but by the time he arrived, the mirror was clear again. He tried to soothe her, though his own nerves betrayed him. The air in the house seemed heavier now, thick with the weight of unseen eyes. Emma, however, treated the presence as if it were something natural. She told her father that the lady only walks through the mirrors, she doesn't hurt anyone. Then she added a detail that made Nathan's blood run cold. She keeps calling my name, really soft, like she's trying to sing me to sleep. On the 5th night, the haunting came for Nathan himself. He dreamed of the house as it had stood in the 1800s. Riders on horseback gathered outside, one of them a man whose face he recognized from history books, President Andrew Jackson. The man's voice cracked like thunder in the dream. You cannot escape. The Bell Witch has never left. Nathan woke with a jolt, drenched in sweat. And at once, 3 sharp knocks reverberated through the wall beside his bed. The next morning, shaken, he went to the town library. He dug through brittle clippings and fading records, piecing together the old legend, the mysterious knocks, the disembodied voices, objects hurled across rooms, sudden deaths. There it was in ink. Andrew Jackson had indeed come to this house, but fled after a single night, declaring it too cursed even for him. Nathan carried the papers home, spreading them across the table. Claire paled as she read, while Emma traced her small fingers across photographs of the old Bell home. That was when the mirror in the parlor rattled violently, a sharp crack splitting the silence. They all turned. The glass shivered, misting over, and a sentence scrawled itself in crooked strokes, as though carved by a finger no one could see. I never left. No one dared breathe a word. The silence pressed down, broken only by the pounding of their own hearts. And then she appeared again. The woman in white drifted across the mirror's surface, visible to all 3 at once. Her face remained hidden, but her presence swept through the room like a frost. Only then did the family understand. They were not merely living in an old house. They had stepped directly into the heart of a curse, and the way out was already beginning to close. Ow! The nightmares had bled from history into the present. Night after night, the Bell house grew heavier with dread. At sunset, the air turned unnaturally cold. Breath rose in clouds. Knocks rolled along the walls, mingling with whispers that made no sense in any human tongue. Nathan fought to keep calm. He locked every window, checked every room, but nothing stopped it. Claire was wasting away, her face hollow, eyes bruised from sleepless nights. She no longer only heard the lullaby. Now she felt a frozen hand settle on her shoulder whenever she stood alone in the kitchen. She would spin around and find nothing, only the wooden chair, always turned toward her, as if someone had been sitting there all along. One night, Emma woke in tears. She pointed at the bedroom mirror, sobbing. She's looking at me, she's in the mirror, but her eyes are sewn shut. Claire rushed to hold her daughter, but when she lifted her gaze to the glass, she saw it too. The pale face of the woman in white, her eyes crudely stitched with black thread, her mouth stretched open, as though to swallow every sound in the room. Nathan, panicked, yanked the blanket from the bed and covered the mirror. But the moment he did, the lullaby rose again, this time right at his ear. The melody twisted, warping into a broken hymn, layered with the faint cries of children. A crushing weight pressed down on his chest, stealing his breath, until Claire's frantic screams of his name shattered the grip. At dawn, they resolved to take Emma away, to stay with friends in town. But at the door, the child collapsed into terrified sobs. She won't let me leave. Every door seized shut at once, unmoving even under Nathan's desperate force. The lights flickered, then died, plunging the house into pitch darkness. From the hallway came footsteps, bare feet, measured, steady, drawing closer. Nathan pulled Claire and Emma tight against him, but from the mirror in the parlor, still shrouded in the blanket, came a piercing crack. Glass split open, not to reveal wood beneath, but a hollow yawning dark, like the mouth of a gate. From within poured the lullaby, clearer, louder, layered in a chorus of voices. Dozens of them, women's voices, some young, some ancient, each intoning the names of the Bell family across the generations. Emma's gaze locked onto the fracture. Her body trembled as though pulled forward. Claire clutched her tighter, sobbing, while Nathan tried to drag them away. But his legs had grown heavy, as if the house itself was rooting him to the floor. And in that moment, Nathan understood. This was not the work of a single spirit. They were ensnared in an inheritance of evil, a legacy stretching back to the 19th century. What the Bell family once endured was now reborn, binding them to a curse that had never been broken. That night, as the moon hung pale above the window, the Bell house was no longer a home. It had become a ritual made flesh, where past and present bled into one, and at the center stood Emma, the child whom the voices longed to claim. Kneel bow. The final night began with silence. No knocking, no whispers, only a suffocating stillness draped over the Bell house. Nathan felt his skin crawl. This was no peace. It was the storm crouching low, waiting to break. Emma slept fitfully in her mother's arms. Claire tried to lull her with a soft song, her voice trembling. But halfway through, horror struck her. It was not her lullaby. It was the lullaby, the same dreadful tune that had haunted their nights. The melody wasn't hers. It was being forced through her throat. She stopped at once, clutching Emma tighter, her breath caught in fear. In the darkness, the cracked mirror in the parlor began to split further. New fractures webbed across its surface, glowing faintly like congealed blood. The blanket Nathan had draped over it tore away, flung aside as if ripped by an unseen hand. Nathan charged forward, seized a chair, and hurled it at the mirror. But instead of shattering, the glass swallowed it whole. The chair vanished into the black, leaving not even the sound of impact. From within, a lullaby swelled, clear, harmonious, sung in both a woman's voice and a child's. Emma's eyes snapped open, glassy and vacant. She whispered, "She's calling me." Claire sobbed, clutching her tighter. But a freezing wind surged out of the mirror, whipping their hair, numbing their skin. Nathan wrapped his arms around them both, trying to pull away. But Emma fought violently, with a strength that no child should possess. In the chaos, Claire's grip slipped. Emma broke free. The little girl walked toward the mirror, calm as though stepping into an embrace. Nathan lunged after her, screaming until his voice tore, but he caught only the hem of her dress before her small body passed through the fissure of light. And then, silence. The lullaby ceased. Emma was gone. The mirror sealed itself, the cracks knitting closed until only a flawless pane remained. It reflected back the hollow, broken faces of Nathan and Claire, two parents staring at the space where their daughter had stood. By morning, the police arrived. They found no evidence of intrusion, no forced doors, no broken windows. The house lay quiet, as though nothing had ever happened. Emma was simply gone, leaving Nathan and Claire shattered in their grief. In her bedroom, on the small bed, lay the knitted doll. Its button eyes had been stitched shut with black thread, the work precise, deliberate, like the final act of some invisible hand completing a ritual. And so, in Adams, Tennessee, the curse of the Bell Witch never ended. It only waited for the foolish, for the hopeful, to step inside and feed it anew with fresh souls. Ow! Lucy grew up in a crowded city on the East Coast of the United States. She was the type of person who loved exploring, often jotting down eerie folk tales to use as material for her thesis on urban legends in American culture. Her personality was a mix of intellectual curiosity and a vague fear of things that couldn't be explained by reason. Jake, Lucy's boyfriend, was the complete opposite. Born and raised in a small Midwestern town, he looked strong and athletic, always appearing calm in any situation. But Lucy knew that deep inside, Jake hated uncertainty. He was never comfortable facing things beyond his control. One day, Lucy decided to accompany Jake back to his family's old wooden cabin, isolated on the edge of town, a place where Jake had lived as a child. For Lucy, the trip was a chance to dig deeper into local legends that she could include in her thesis. For Jake, it was just a quiet weekend away from the noise of the city. What Jake didn't realize was that in this very old house, locals still whispered about a creature that had spread terror for decades. And Lucy, driven by her curiosity, would unknowingly awaken a story that everyone else wanted to forget. The sky grew dark as Lucy and Jake arrived. The cabin sat in the middle of a clearing, surrounded by thick woods. The wind howled, branches scraping against the glass like claws. Inside, the house looked ancient. The wooden floor creaked, and the walls were lined with black and white photos of Jake's ancestors. Lucy shivered when she noticed the stern faces, their eyes seeming to follow her every step. Jake just laughed it off, saying it was her imagination. That evening, as they prepared a simple meal, a storm rolled in. Thunder cracked, and the power went out. Darkness swallowed the room, leaving only the flickering glow of an oil lamp Jake found in the pantry. In the eerie silence between the rain and wind, Lucy began to hear a faint call from the forest outside. The sound repeated, weak but unmistakably human. Jake frowned. "There can't be anyone out there at this hour," Lucy whispered, her voice trembling. "It sounds like a woman. I think she's calling your name." Goosebumps prickled Jake's skin. He had never told Lucy that as a child, on stormy nights like this, he too had heard strange voices from the woods, and it had always been the voices of people he knew. Bow. The call, faint at first, grew clearer. Lucy held her breath, straining to listen. "Jake, Jake!" The voice was shrill and weak, like a lost woman crying out in the dark. Lucy gripped Jake's hand, her eyes wide with fear. "You hear that, don't you? Someone needs help." Jake shivered. He recognized that voice. It was his mother's, the very woman who had died years ago in an accident on the road near these woods. He froze. His heart pounded, his mind screaming it was impossible, yet memories and fear clawed their way back. Then Lucy noticed muddy footprints outside the window. At first, just a few scattered marks, but soon they multiplied, forming a circle around the house. The wind slammed the window, and in a flash of lightning, Lucy glimpsed a tall, twisted shadow standing in the yard. Its shape was distorted, not quite human, not quite beast. Its eyes glowed like a predator's, but its face almost resembled a human's, an unfinished imitation. Then came the knocking. 3 slow, deliberate raps. Knock, knock, knock. The entire house seemed to hold its breath. Jake's face drained of color as he whispered to Lucy, "God, it's here." The door rattled violently, as though about to burst off its hinges. Lucy stumbled back, clutching the oil lamp. Jake stood his ground, eyes locked on the door. Suddenly, an old, raspy voice came from outside the side wall. "Don't open the door. Never answer it." Both froze, spinning toward the window. In the dim lamplight, they saw a frail, white-haired man drenched in rain, leaning on a cane. His eyes gleamed unnaturally in the dark. Jake recognized him immediately. Old Harris, the oldest neighbor in the area, who lived alone in a shack miles away. Locals often whispered he knew strange things no one dared to speak aloud. Lucy quickly unlatched the back door, letting him in. The old man brought with him the smell of damp earth and cold rain. Placing a trembling hand on Jake's shoulder, his expression grave, he said, "That thing out there, it isn't human. It's been wandering these woods for generations. They call it the Skinwalker. It mimics the voices of your loved ones to lure you outside." Lucy's stomach turned cold as she recalled the voice calling Jake's name. Jake clenched his fists so tight his nails dug into his palms. Harris leaned closer, his hoarse whisper almost a hiss. "It knocks 3 times. If you answer or step outside, you'll never come back." Just as he finished, the second knock thundered against the door, heavier, more violent, like a monstrous hand trying to rip it apart. Knock, knock, knock. The house shook. The storm roared louder. Shadows danced on the walls. Then, a voice floated in from the porch. "Jake, it's me. Let me in, Jake." Lucy froze. It was her voice. Perfectly copied, but hollow wrong, as though spilling from a mouth not meant for human speech. Jake's eyes went wide, sweat dripping down his face. He turned to Lucy beside him, pale and terrified. No, you're right here. But that's your voice." The call grew more desperate. "Jake, don't you see me? I'm so cold. Please, open the door." Harris gripped his cane, growling. "Don't listen. That's how it tricks you. Open that door, and you give it your soul." But Jake's mind was clouded. The voice pulled at him like a hook, dragging him forward. His steps creaked on the floorboards. Slow, heavy, inevitable. Lucy sobbed, clinging to his arm. "Jake, look at me. I'm here. Don't listen to it." A lightning flash illuminated the window. For a split second, Lucy saw the hulking shadow outside. It leaned close to the door, its mouth grotesquely stretched, and in her own voice it whispered, "Jake, you love me, don't you? Let me in." The third knock came, louder than ever, shaking the frame. Knock, knock, knock. Jake's trembling hand touched the latch. The door creaked open just a crack. A rancid stench of blood poured in. Through the gap, a single yellow eye gleamed, unblinking, predator-like. Then a long, withered hand with gray, leathery skin and unnaturally long fingers reached inside, joints cracking as it clawed toward them. Lucy screamed, yanking Jake back. Harris struck the hand with his cane. The limb jerked, retreating, but before vanishing, a patch of its skin tore away, revealing raw, red muscle beneath. A guttural laugh rose from outside, half human, half animal, echoing with many voices at once. You won't escape. The cabin shuddered as the creature rammed the door again. Splinters rained onto the floor. Lucy knew it wouldn't hold for long. Harris shouted, "The cellar! Quickly before it breaks through!" He dragged them to a trapdoor in the kitchen floor, hidden beneath a rug. Dust flew as he yanked it open, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. Down now. Lucy and Jake stumbled into the cellar. Harris slammed the hatch shut, just as the front door above shattered with a deafening crash. In the cellar's dim glow, shelves lined with jars and strange charms loomed in the shadows. Symbols scrawled in black ash covered the walls. "This is the only place it cannot enter," Harris rasped. "The wards keep it out." Above them, heavy footsteps thudded across the floor. Then the voice returned, directly overhead. "Lucy, Jake, I know you're down there." The tone shifted, Lucy's voice, then Jake's mother's, then the cries of a child. Lucy buried her face in Jake's chest, trembling. Harris whispered, "It doesn't just want your lives. It wants your faces, your memories, your souls. Once it takes them, no one will know you ever existed." The footsteps stopped. Silence pressed down. Then a distorted face peered through the crack of the cellar door, its yellow eye gleaming. The pounding resumed, shaking the hatch so violently dust showered onto them. Harris pressed his hand to the cymbals, muttering incantations. The knocks slowed, then ceased. Relief washed over them, until a chilling voice spoke, not from above, but from the darkness behind them in the cellar. "Did you really think you could hide from me?" The oil lamp sputtered and died. The cellar drowned in black. Lucy screamed, clawing for Jake. Harris swung his cane wildly. Two glowing eyes opened in the dark. They drew closer. And then, silence. At dawn, the cabin was empty. No trace of Lucy, Jake, or Harris remained. Only muddy, bloody handprints smeared across the cellar door, proof they had once been there. The townsfolk gained another story to whisper on stormy nights, that the skinwalker had claimed 3 more souls. And somewhere in the woods, familiar voices still echoed, calling, waiting for the next victim. One day. The night in the American city was always ablaze with neon lights, yet beneath the rusted bridges and in the abandoned subway stations, the darkness was thicker than anywhere else. There, a homeless man drifted through life, without a name, without anyone left to remember him. He crouched beside a half-burned trash can, wrapping himself in a torn coat that someone had discarded long ago. Every day he wandered the streets, rummaging through dumpsters, collecting plastic bottles to sell for a few coins. Passers-by walked past, without so much as a glance. To them, he was nothing more than a meaningless shadow amid the bustling city. Some nights, he asked himself when exactly he had vanished from this world. No family, no friends, no place to return to. The man existed only as a walking corpse, surviving on scraps left behind from other people's feasts. The winter cold pierced through his ragged coat, freezing his flesh. He pulled himself deeper into the shadows beneath the bridge, listening to the sound of cars above like some alien melody. In this city, millions of lights blazed in the sky, but not a single one shone down on him. In rare moments between hunger and cold, he wondered, if I truly disappeared, would anyone even notice? One foggy morning, the homeless man wandered down an alley behind the tall buildings. His stomach growled with hunger as he bent over a restaurant's dumpster, recently closed for the night. As his trembling fingers fumbled through crumpled plastic bags, he accidentally pulled out a rain-soaked, wrinkled sheet of paper. It was a flyer. White background, bold black letters. Volunteers wanted for medical experiments. High pay. Guaranteed safety. Apply at X Biotech Center. At the bottom, a phone number and address were clearly printed. The man clenched the flyer tightly in his hand. How long had it been since he last touched real money? The thought of enough pay to survive the winter made his heart race. No one cared about a homeless man like him, so why should he be afraid? That afternoon, he went to the address on the flyer. In the middle of an upscale district, the X Biotech Center rose like a cold glass monolith, towering high, reflecting the harsh sunlight. Inside, the hallways were long and sterile white. People in white lab coats passed by without a glance, as if he were nothing but a misplaced shadow in their world. A bespectacled employee, with a blank expression, handed him a thick stack of registration forms. He didn't understand the dense medical jargon written inside. His eyes only caught the bold, capitalized line. Sign consent form. Compensation. $10,000. $10,000. The number glowed like a promise of salvation. Without another thought, he picked up the pen with trembling hands and signed his name. He didn't realize that his signature was, in truth, a one-way ticket into the abyss. Whee! The day of the experiment arrived. The man was led into a sterile white room, vast as a hospital ward, yet terrifyingly pristine. Cameras lined the walls. Ventilation systems hummed in the background. He wasn't alone. Several other weary faces, homeless, unemployed, sat huddled on cold stainless steel beds. They exchanged anxious glances, like rats trapped inside a cage. A team of doctors in white coats entered. Their faces were hidden behind masks, their eyes cold behind protective goggles. Without a word, they began injecting each subject with a thick, dark, greenish-black fluid. As the needle pierced his skin, the man felt his body ignite from within. His heart pounded erratically. His head spun. His entire body convulsed violently. Screams echoed through the room as the others writhed in agony. A burly man collapsed to the floor, eyes rolling back, foam spilling from his mouth. A woman shrieked until her voice broke, then fell silent. One by one, the bodies crumpled and lay still. The homeless man felt his heart suddenly stop beating. His vision went black. His breath faltered. The last sounds he heard were the frantic scratching of a pen on a clipboard and the cold snap of latex gloves tearing open a medical kit. Finally, his body went limp, sinking into absolute darkness. A doctor nodded, making a note. Subject No, 27, deceased. A white sheet was draped over his body. His corpse was wheeled away, down into the morgue in the basement. The man was dead. Or at least, that's what they all believed. As you know. Yeah. In the frigid morgue, rows of steel drawers stacked one upon another, fluorescent lights casting a pale glow on the white, tiled floor. The air was thick with the stench of formalin and rusted metal. The screech of metal wheels echoed as an attendant slid his body into one of the drawers and slammed the heavy steel door shut. Inside, there was nothing but absolute darkness, and the freezing chill seeping deep into his flesh. But then, in the middle of the blackness, his eyelids fluttered. A strange warmth surged through his veins. His heart, supposedly stilled, suddenly clenched violently, then began to beat again. A ragged breath burst out, cold vapor spilling into the cramped air. He opened his eyes. His body ached, as if it had been crushed. He tried to move, thrashing against the steel walls around him. In desperation, he slammed his hand forward, and it passed straight through the metal, as though it were smoke. Terrified, he jerked back, heart pounding, then tremblingly reached again. This time his entire body slid through the door, emerging on the other side like a ghost. The man collapsed on the tile floor, drenched in sweat. He stared at his trembling hands, feeling each cell shifting, mutating. Staggering forward, he brushed against a cold brick wall and phased right through it into the next room. His mouth fell open in shock, yet a strange thrill coursed through him. For a fleeting moment, he was no longer the invisible shadow abandoned by society. He was something else. Something mankind had accidentally created. But his body quickly weakened. His joints ached, his vision blurred. He realized that power wasn't permanent. It was like a raging fever, flaring briefly before burning out. Panting in the icy silence, he understood one thing. Death hadn't freed him. It had only begun, a terrifying curse. He had barely staggered out of the morgue when alarms erupted throughout the building. Red lights flashed, sirens wailed, echoing like calls from hell. On the control room monitors, security staff froze in disbelief as subject number 27 walked the halls. He had been recorded as deceased. A cold voice crackled through the intercom. Emergency. Subject reactivated. Lock down the entire facility. Instantly, heavy footsteps thundered down the corridors. The man, panicked, bolted forward, instinct urging him to hurl himself at a steel wall. In a blink, his body slipped through the thick metal, vanishing to the other side. He gasped for air, heart hammering. The bizarre power let him escape again and again, but it seared his body, drenched him in sweat. Each passage through solid matter drained him, as though the drug was gnawing at his very life. Security teams in black protective gear stormed the halls with stun rifles. Their shouts thundered. Do not let him escape. The subject is too dangerous. The man dashed through brightly lit laboratories. His eyes caught sight of glass chambers filled with twisted corpses, flesh melted, tumors sprouting in grotesque clusters. His stomach turned. He realized he was just one rat among countless failed experiments. Each escape ended the same. Recaptured, strapped to a steel bed, injected with new doses. They scribbled notes, analyzed, experimented, then watched him die, only for him to awaken in agony. He had become the nightmare of the center's own making. A ghost that refused to stay dead, wandering between steel walls. Ooh. The chases, the captures, the injections, the deaths, the resurrections, repeated endlessly like a nightmare with no escape. His body grew frailer, yet his ability to slip through walls sharpened, as though pain and the drug itself were forging him into something new. One night, during a botched experiment, the center was careless. The restraints hadn't been secured. He gathered every ounce of strength and broke free. The corridor stretched ahead, alarms blaring. But this time, he wasn't running in despair. He was running as if he knew it was the last time. He hurled himself through wall after wall, skin burning, blood spilling from his mouth. Stun shots cracked behind him, but only grazed his blurred silhouette before he vanished through a thick concrete barrier. The final door burst open. The night wind rushed in, icy and sharp. Under the pale glow of streetlights, his figure flickered, then disappeared entirely into the darkness. From that night on, no one ever saw him again. The ex-biotech center buried the incident, filing it away as Subject No. 27, missing. But whispers spread. Some claimed that in the old streets, they had seen a gaunt figure drift through brick walls, only to vanish without a trace. Dene. This story, he was the one who told it. One rainy night, in the corner of a cheap diner on the city's edge, you sat beside an old homeless man. His eyes were cloudy, his voice raspy, but each word spilled like it came from the depths of the abyss. I died, I came back, and I am no longer human. He spoke of the flyer, the injections, the endless escapes, and the horrific toll his body had paid. You shivered but dared not interrupt. At the end, he looked straight into your eyes, lips curling in a pale smile. I am Subject No. 27, and I am still here, at least for now. You blinked. When you turned back, the seat beside you was empty. Only a crumpled, rain-soaked flyer remained, its words smeared and fading. Volunteers wanted for medical experiments, high pay, guaranteed safety. In that moment, you understood. The man had never truly disappeared. He was still drifting between the walls of this world, forever an invisible phantom. Nay. Within the abandoned asylum, rusted wires bite into effigies suspended in endless decay. Their hollow forms sway gently, as if lulled by a breath that no longer belongs to the living. When night falls, the silence fractures. The figures convulse, their heads twisting in unison to a broken funereal rhythm. Jonah pulled the car to a halt on the gravel road, where withered trees stretched their skeletal branches toward the ashen sky. Before him loomed the asylum, a corpse of concrete and steel, windows shattered, walls peeled and veined with moss. Clara stepped out, her old camera slung over her shoulder, eyes caught between curiosity and dread. They had heard the stories whispered 100 times before. Muffled cries echoing down the corridors, shadows dangling in broken windows, and always the same dreaded name, Dr. Harland. Jonah recounted to Clara the rumors of Harland's puppet therapy, drilling into skulls, wiring patients so their bodies could be made to dance. Many dismissed it as grotesque folklore, but others swore those experiments were the very reason the asylum was shuttered overnight. They pushed at the rust-eaten steel doors. Ingus screamed, the sound dragging down the hallway like metal tearing bone. Inside, the stench of ancient disinfectant mingled with mildew, as though the air itself had been trapped since the 60s. Clara lifted her camera, snapping shot after shot. Rusted bed frames, suffocating corridors, padded cells gone rotten with mold. Jonah led the way, jotting notes. Clara said nothing, only pressed her shutter again, as though afraid the building's truth might vanish if she didn't capture it fast enough. Darkness thickened as daylight drained from the high windows, swallowing the halls whole. They stopped at the threshold of the great auditorium, where a collapsed wooden stage waited under a ceiling of rusting beams. Jonah felt his own footsteps strike too loud, the echoes bouncing back as though someone unseen matched his pace. Clara drew in a breath, her lens trembling as she tilted it toward the rafters. A sudden flash erupted. For the briefest instant, Jonah glimpsed something. Someone suspended high above. Then blackness reclaimed it. He craned his neck upward, heart pounding, while the air grew heavier, pressing on his chest. From somewhere deep within the asylum came a sound, a drawn-out metallic screech, like strings being tested in the dark. Clara's whisper cracked the silence. "We're not the only ones here." Jonah flicked on his flashlight, its narrow beam slicing through the dark. The light swept across the steel rafters above, and his breath caught. Shapes dangled from the beams. From a distance, they looked like patients in tattered hospital gowns, but their skin was gray, stiff, and lifeless as wood. Clara lowered her camera, hands trembling. She had managed one last shot before the flash revealed the horrific truth. One of the figures twitched, a hand jerking slightly, its neck bent at an unnatural angle as if yanked by invisible reins. Jonah swore every hollow eye socket had turned toward them. A chorus of metallic shrieks echoed overhead. The wires shuddered, pulling the hanging forms taut. Then they moved, not with the fluidity of the living, but stiff and jerky, like wooden marionettes forced to dance. Heads snapped in unison, arms lifted, legs curled, all to a rhythm only they could hear. Jonah staggered back against the wall, cold sweat breaking across his skin. He remembered the patient files he'd studied. Rumors of skulls drilled open, wires fed into spines, bodies turned into living puppets. He had never believed it. Not until now. Clara clutched his arm, whispering, They're still being controlled, but by who? A heavier movement drew their eyes upward. From the shattered stage at the far end of the hall, something massive was rising. It was no longer a man, but a grotesque fusion of steel cables, rotting wood, and clattering joints. A face patched together, half man, half puppet, hung above a hulking body. Jonah knew instantly who it was, Dr. Harland, or what remained of him. The giant puppet bent low, its elongated arms sweeping wide. When it yanked a lever of wire, every dangling patient screamed in unison, a cacophony of cracking wood, grinding joints, and rusted hinges shrieking. The sound drove Clara to her knees, hands clamped over her ears. Jonah tried to haul her up, his eyes locked on the advancing horde. From the rafters, wires slithered downward like roots, snaking toward the floor, carrying the stench of rust and blood. There was only one choice left: flee deeper into the asylum's maze, or be hoisted up as another lifeless puppet. Jonah gripped Clara's hand hard and shouted, "Run!" Their footsteps thundered down the corridor, chased by the mad symphony of shrieking wires and the wooden convulsions of puppets dancing to their unseen master's tune. Wah! The narrow corridor stretched into infinity. Every step Jonah and Clara took echoing like a death knell. The trembling beam of the flashlight swept across half-open iron doors, their nameplates faded with time. Room 12, Special Therapy, Room 23, Behavioral Experiments. Wind hissed through cracks in the walls, sounding like the labored breaths of invisible patients. Jonah ran, forcing his lungs into rhythm. In his mind, the asylum's cryptic notes spun in a vicious cycle: marionette therapy, restoring willpower through external control. He had never believed anyone could be cruel enough to attempt such things. But now the truth dangled on wires behind them, swaying in pursuit. Clara halted, pointing to a door left ajar. The faint red lettering still lingered: operating room. "Jonah, we have to look," she gasped. "There might be answers inside." Jonah hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to keep running, but Clara's gaze, terrified yet unyielding, pulled him forward. Together, they shoved the door open. The operating room lay in darkness, save for a few dangling bulbs. One flickered to life with a sickly yellow glow, spotlighting the center table. There, shackled in place, lay the skeleton of a patient. Ribcage punctured, spine threaded with rusted wires. Clara lifted her camera and clicked. The flash burst across the back wall, unveiling a grotesque mosaic, dozens of sketches tacked side by side. Human bodies redrawn as puppets, their joints hinged with steel, every pencil stroke marking a drill wound. In the center hung the largest draft, its title scrawled in bold: Project Marionette, Total Control. Jonah's stomach twisted. He stepped closer, trembling fingers brushing the smeared ink. At the corner, a signature still lingered: crooked, desperate, Harland, 1963. A sudden clang of metal jolted them. They spun around as the ceiling cracked, wires slithering downward to coil around the skeleton's limbs. The corpse jerked violently, then sat upright, jaw grinding with a splintering rasp. Dot. Clara screamed, while Jonah dragged her into the corner. The puppet corpse staggered forward, wires threaded through its eye sockets and chest, twitching with each unnatural step. Every footfall was the sound of wood splintering, every pull of the wires a discordant note. From the distance came a voice, low and rhythmic, like a conductor's count. 1, 2, 3. Jonah froze. Harland was orchestrating the entire asylum like a stage, each puppet moving to his cadence. He squeezed Clara's hand, eyes locked on the narrow exit across the room. "Run when I say now." The puppet advanced, iron arm swinging down. Jonah zeised a rusted bar from the floor and swung upward, clashing against the blow. The screech of metal on metal shrieked through the room, sparks flying. In that instant, Clara dashed through the door, Jonah racing after her. They plunged into another corridor, leaving behind the relentless beat echoing through the asylum, louder, heavier, as if the building itself had a pulse. Jonah gasped for air, one truth burning inside him. Unless they destroyed the thing at the center of it all, they too would be dragged upward, to dangle among the others, lifeless marionettes swaying in Harland's grip. Nisai, never way. The metallic shrieks of the wires still trailed them, but Jonah was beginning to notice a pattern. The cadence, 1, 2, 3, echoed from deep within the asylum, steady as a war drum. Each time the rhythm quickened, the puppets they encountered in the corridors twitched awake, turning in unison toward them. "Clara," he whispered, "the sound guides them. If we follow it, we'll find where Harland is pulling the strings." Clara nodded, her face pale, but a spark of resolve flickered in her eyes. She clutched the camera as if it were the last weapon she had. They descended a rotting spiral staircase. Dust coated the steps, clawed with endless gouges where wires had scraped across the stone. Jonah's hand skimmed a damp brick wall, the chill sinking into his skin like a parasite. As they dropped another level, the beat grew clearer, merging with the taut whine of wires pulled too tight, like a violin tuned past breaking. At the bottom stood a massive iron door. 2 words were carved into its surface: Control Ward. It hung slightly ajar, and through the crack spilled a red glow, pulsing with every count of the rhythm. Jonah drew a sharp breath and pushed it open. Inside lay a circular chamber, its ceiling a high dome from which hundreds of wires dangled like metallic roots. Each tether fed into colossal gears that churned with a grinding tempo. And at the very center, enthroned upon a towering chair, sat the husk of Dr. Harlan. His body was no longer whole. Half his face had rotted away, yet his eyes remained open, milky and unblinking. Wires pierced his ribs, spine, even the skull itself, latching him into the machinery. Each turn of the gears yanked his body in violent spasms, and with every jolt came the thunder of puppets shifting above. Clara covered her mouth, choking back a scream. Jonah could not look away. This was no mere mad doctor. Harlan had transformed himself into the mechanical heart of the asylum, a grotesque puppeteer wired to his own stage. Suddenly, Harlan's eyes swiveled, locking onto them. A voice rolled out, not from his mouth, but from every wire, reverberating through the chamber as though the building itself spoke. The final audience has arrived. The wires shuddered, glowing red-hot. From the fissures in the walls, the patients emerged, dozens of them, shuffling forward. Wooden hands and iron limbs scraped across the floor, closing the circle. Jonah dragged Clara back toward the far corner. His mind raced. He couldn't fight this army. But if Harlan was the center, destroying the machinery might end it all. "Clara, listen," he hissed, urgent. "We have to break the main gear. If it stops, everything stops with it." Clara swallowed hard, then nodded. She clutched the camera tighter, ready to hurl it if it meant shattering steel. The puppets advanced, the circle closing in. Harlan's laughter rattled through the dome, blending with the screech of grinding gears, a death orchestra swelling to crescendo. Jonah tightened his grip on the rusted iron bar, eyes locked on the glowing heart of the machine. There was only one chance: to strike before the wires closed in, before they too were bound, suspended among the asylum's collection of lifeless marionettes. Wah! Jonah tightened his grip on the iron rod, his heart pounding like a war drum. The puppets closed in, their hollow eyes gleaming, wires shrieking as they strained. At the center, Harlan convulsed with each grinding turn of the gears, half his ruined face curled into a grotesque smile. The audience must join the final act, his voice echoed through the dome, drawn out like a warped lullaby. With a roar, Jonah charged the machine. The iron rod slammed into the blazing gear, sparks bursting in a violent spray. The mechanism shuddered, wires slackened, and the puppets staggered in confusion. Clara screamed his name, her eyes wide with terror. But Harlan would not yield. Wires slashed down from the rafters, coiling around Jonah's arm, wrenching him into the grinding maw. His body jolted violently, blood streaking across steel, mingling with the pulsing red glow. Clara rushed forward, clawing to free him, but Jonah's trembling hand pressed against her chest, stopping her. "Clara, run," he gasped, tears brimming in his eyes. "Let me end this." Her scream cracked the silence, but the wires twisted tighter, dragging Jonah into the core of the machine. With the last breath of his strength, he raised the rod and drove it down. The gear split apart with a thunderous crack. Light flared, then died. Silence swallowed the chamber. The puppets collapsed where they stood, strings cut, lifeless. Harlan's body crumbled with them, torn into rusted wire and rotted bone. Clara fell to her knees. Before her lay only shattered metal and a smear of blood, the last trace of Jonah. He had been consumed by the machine he destroyed. Beyond the asylum walls, dawn broke at last. Pale light crept through shattered windows, but in Clara's eyes it reflected nothing but a hollow void. The memory of Jonah and the shriek of steel wires would haunt her forever, like a play that refused to end, its curtain never falling. And I see.